Hello, I'm Sarah, and throughout the previous few years I've been going to the very costly school-based school for rich children. Let me share a couple of accounts of the most insane things I've seen occurring here. Most importantly, practically all folks in my grade have a few sugar darlings. It truly sucks. I mean, how might I track down a beau in school in the event that most folks here can date essentially any model they need? You see, I'm simply a typical young lady. I grew up center class, and just when my ideal mother, who's both teacher at a renowned college and very gorgeous, wedded a notable Wall Road tycoon, I unexpectedly needed to move to New York City and was placed into this school for rich children. At first, I felt very awkward here. Everybody wore fashioner garments and saw me like I was a rebel, perhaps in light of the fact that I wore HM and didn't have the most recent iPhone. The cool children totally overlooked me, so I asked my mother's very rich person's spouse, assuming that he would give me some cash for shopping. He benevolently gave me $200, yet I let him know unfortunately that is sufficiently not. My cohorts all wear fashioner garments. I think I'll require no less than $3,000 to purchase sufficient garments to fit in. He shook his head in dissatisfaction, yet gave me the cash at any rate. Then I went on a wild shopping binge, purchasing lots of very extravagant garments. Sounds fun, however it wasn't, on the grounds that I had worn unobtrusive garments for my entire life, and presently I was double-crossing my own qualities just to make others like me. It felt wrong anyway. Dressed like a rich young lady, I returned to school and requested some from the cool children. How their end of the week was, a young lady answered. Goodness, it was so entertaining, on the grounds that we saw an unfortunate vagrant in the city, and afterward we had a silly thought. We purchased an $800 Dolce & Gabbana sweater and gave it to her. It's so interesting on the grounds that everybody will trust it's a phony one, despite the fact that it's genuine. I began giggling with them despite the fact that I thought it was totally sickening. I mean, with that cash they might have leased her a permanent place to stay for a month, or got her nourishment for quite a long time. Basically, they acknowledged me into their club. We were taking a seat at a costly eatery when one of them detected a transient external. He was still in his youngsters, and I felt so terrible. Yet one of the young ladies said, "For what reason don't we welcome him to eat at our table? We request costly food and hold on until he goes to the bathroom. That is the point at which we slip away the cafe, so he needs to take care of the bill, which obviously he can't." They generally began snickering once more, and one young lady went outside to welcome the destitute to eat with us. He looked drained, and I requested that he recount to us his story, which was sad. He said his family had tossed him out when he was just 14, and since he'd been living on the roads. We ate together, and the other young lady began laughing when he let us know he'd go to the bathroom whenever he was gone. We as a whole stood up and overlooked. However, I immediately tossed $300 so he wouldn't cause problems for not having the option to pay. Things got significantly more insane when I was welcomed to my colleague Sergey's birthday celebration. He was just 16, yet living in his own New York City penthouse. I did a few examinations and figured out that it costs $30,000 every month to lease it. Much more stunning was that he had 3 beautiful models remaining close to him consistently. At one point he said, "Me and my sugar angels invite you to my home. I think about when you're rich you can purchase love, or if nothing else, tissue." And Sergey was Russian, and we as a whole realized that Russians love to boast about how rich they are, so they can cause destitute individuals to feel substandard. I mean, have you at any point saw how for the most part Russian tycoons need to possess a few yachts and hotshot? Well, to make things more terrible, Sergey didn't call his sugar darlings by name, yet by numbers. He said, "Hello, number 3, go get me a beverage." However, there is one more clouded side of rich children I haven't discussed at this point. My schoolmate Sergey was intellectually feeble when one of our educators advised him to quit being so languid. Lastly, begin getting his work done. Sergey went ballistic and compromised our instructor, saying he would call his daddy to get him killed. That very day I reached the resolution that rich children ought not be permitted to acquire their folks' cash, since rich children are the rubbish of the earth. Essentially, Sergey got started off the school after that episode, and just a month after the fact I was informed that he had driven impaired one evening and hit somebody. The individual wasn't genuinely harmed, however. When the police came, Sergey attempted to pay them off. He supposedly offered the police officer $50,000. Sergey, who was brought into the world in Russia, doesn't comprehend that you can't roll over individuals here in the US and pull off it, despite the fact that I'm certain that it's conceivable in Russia, his country, the place where there is bad oligarchs that exploit their stupid residents who actually accept that their leader Putin thinks often about them when really he simply enhances his oligarch companions, while the vast majority are proceeding to reside in destitution. I began to loathe rich children to an ever-increasing extent. However, there was one issue: I'm a young lady and us young ladies have a characteristic propensity to be drawn to high-status folks with bunches of cash. There was this person bricklayer in the grade above me, and I truly squashed on him. He was rich, attractive, and appeared to be really aggressive. He was a DJ in his spare energy, and even had a few tunes. With in excess of 1 million perspectives on YouTube, I felt that he was the genuine article, so I informed him on Facebook and figured out how to get out on the town with him. Goodness, did I notice he was likewise raised. I routinely snared with him. However, at that point, I tracked down an infusion in his room with some medication close to it called Bolden, and I researched it, and incidentally, it was an anabolic steroid, so he wasn't jacked. In light of the fact that he was focused and routinely hit the rec center, no, he pursued the faster route and just infused poison into his body. Was he actually that frantic to dazzle others that he was ready to obliterate his own well-being? Great. I additionally began asking why I never saw him chipping away at his PC to create new tunes. I got some information about it, and he said, "Gracious, I'm working with this other person who does the greater part of the specialized work. I center more around being in front of an audience and shaking the club," while he wraps up, while this person, who had a huge number of fans all over the planet and groupies consistently on his shows, was essentially simply one more ruined minimal rich imp who had all that in life given to him. I let him know, "Aren't you humiliated to not really buckle down like other specialists?" And he answered, "What are you referring to? I'm doing what every other person does." You truly think Justin Bieber produces his own music or composes his own verses? All he does is go in front of an audience and sing. It's the most straightforward work on the planet, and I maintain that should do it too. Groupies, cash and distinction, that is all I should be cheerful. Well, he somewhat had a point. However, I likewise realized that this was not the thoughtful individual I needed to be involved with. I mean, on the off chance that I wedded this fellow and I would become ill or something, I realized I was unable to depend on him, since he had never truly done anything hard in his life. And that is the issue with rich children. They are feeble. For instance, large numbers of the young ladies in my school horsed riding as a game. Obviously, they boasted about how great they are and the number of decorations they that won. However, it's for the most part about who purchased the best and most costly pony. Currently, don't misunderstand me, there are additionally a few extraordinary rich children like Mike. He was the smartest understudy in class and couldn't have cared less about being famous. When we went on a class outing to North Dakota and we were loading onto a plane, my other schoolmate Jack would have rather not held up in line, so he put his dark shades on and claimed to be visually impaired so we could go to the line for disabled and elderly folks, individuals. That is when Mike had enough and let the attendant know that Jack was just professing to be visually impaired and ought to stand by in accordance with the others. Jack answered, "Hold up, man, this was only a trial. Obviously I wouldn't really do this, you just made it happen, so quit lying, you sleazeball." This was the episode that enlivened me to quit attempting to be well known. I sold my fashioner garments on eBay, gave the cash I returned to my stepdad, and began wearing HM again. I likewise went to Mike and inquired as to why he was so unique in relation to different children, and he said, "Goodness, this is on the grounds that my father said he'll offer all his cash to noble cause. I get zero, nothing, so, except if I cause my coexistence I'm problems, yet my folks gave me what's generally significant for a kid, and that is love and consideration. And don't get me wrong, I'm still really favored. I was brought into the world in America and I'm going to a non-public school. To be straightforward, I have huge regard for well-off individuals like Bill Entryways who will give a large portion of their cash to good cause, as opposed to ruining their moronic youngsters, in light of the fact that the last thing this world necessitates is another feudal rich youngster. You check whether a rich youngster purchases a Ferrari that required very long time to fabricate, then that is a very long time of human work squandered that might have been spent on something like aiding poor people or fostering another immunization. Now, on the off chance that you brought in the cash yourself, feel free to purchase anything you desire. Perhaps you merit it. Well, Mike and I are companions now. When I inquired as to whether he needed to do schoolwork with me, he answered, "What, you're doing your own schoolwork, huh? What do you mean?" "Well, every other person here has mentors to do it for them." That is the reason I was shocked. Please like and subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below. Say I subscribed to have a chance to win $150.